because the way that I approach business is I want to provide something that other people want as well. Like you want to be solving a problem. That's the only way you're going to truly have a profitable business. But with my dad in the beginning, I could tell he just really needed the help and the support with the store. So it started with just like redeveloping the space. And then slowly I told him that I wanted to sell used clothing because he doesn't really know what thrift is, but I explained it to him in my language that we're going to be selling used clothing.
What is your language, please?
Fulani.
Okay, so you're talking to your dad about selling used clothing, pre-loved clothing. He rejected that idea, I'm sure.
He did.
So how did you move this forward? Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to this week's edition of the Oasis. It's your brother Haqq Islam, and I have one of my favorite people in the entire universe, Kadjahtou Balde. She is the owner, CEO, operator, person in charge of Modify Thrift, where all the beautiful hijabis from all over the world go to shop for all kinds of designer clothes, hijabi fashions, everything. And I just love her personality because she is just an incredible person, effervescent, all that type of stuff. So let's bring Kadjahtou on with a warm round of applause. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam. Thank you. That was so generous.
You like that intro, right?
Yeah, I really did.
So you're Ghanaian?
Ghanaian, yeah.
Yeah. And you recently had a celebration, right? All right. What's the path from Guinea to America for you?
Well, I was actually born in Atlanta.
Is that right?
Yeah. Believe it or not, I was born in Georgia. But my mom decided that she wanted to go back home when I was around 6 months. So from that point on, she went back to Guinea, and that's where I grew up for like the first 8 years of my life until my dad was able to bring all of my family to the U.S. And then that's when I returned.
How many brothers and sisters do you have?
So I have 4 brothers and 2 sisters, and all of them were born back home in Guinea. I was the only one that was born here.
So you're the youngest?
Not the youngest, the second youngest. Yes.
Where did you go to school?
So I grew up in the Bronx after we moved to the U.S. And so high school or?
No, we're going to go through the whole thing because I want to give people the background on who you are.
Yeah, so I grew up in the Bronx for most of my life, and I went to a school called Modify 5. It was right up the block from my house. That's also where I went to elementary school. So for most of my life, I was on one block, actually. So believe it or not, living in New York City, I only knew one place. And then when I graduated, I decided that I wanted to go to the furthest city possible within New York. And so I went to a SUNY school, which is the State University of New York, in a city called Potsdam.
What?
A city called Potsdam. It is
it's
in the
New
North
York?
Country. It's in New York.
What's the name of the school?
SUNY Potsdam.
SUNY Potsdam.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah.
What was that experience like?
It was interesting. I decided to go there, one, because it was really far and I was craving kind of like being away from the city and being in a new environment. And so Potsdam is literally like an hour and a half away from Canada. So it's like really far up there. And it was really interesting. Like I was one of the very few, if not the only hijabi at the time when I went there. It's in the North Country, so majority of the people there are, white.
Were you embraced or were you shunned?
The way I am is I kind of create the experience that I want for myself. And so going into Potsdam, I was actually really excited by the idea that I would be different, because I knew that would just open up a lot of opportunity for me to do a lot of things there. Within that space, and so I was very much embraced. Like I did really well. I ended up being one of the founders of the first Muslim student associations there, in which I was like president for 2 years or so. And then eventually I climbed up the ladder, and I worked for almost every department at that university.
What you study?
I studied biology and communications. So I was a double major in biology and communications with a minor in Arabic studies.
Biology and communications. So you didn't know if you wanted to be a doctor or a newscaster?
Actually, I knew I went in wanting to be a dentist.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yep. My whole life going into college, I thought I was going to be a dentist. And then eventually I realized I did not like medicine at all. I enjoyed studying it, but I just knew that it wasn't the space for me. And then communications, I kind of took up during my junior year of college. So I literally had a year and a half, and I did that major within that time. And I was just fascinated by communications. Like I enjoyed learning. I enjoyed my classes. And so I decided that I was going to add that to my major.
So what was your first job coming out of school?
My first job, I guess if we could backtrack a little bit, actually,
Sure.
like in college, I did almost every job within that university. And eventually I also ended up being the first Muslim student body president at that university.
Really?
Yes.
So you were very popular.
I wouldn't say popular. I was just very active. I've always been the kind of person who just enjoyed creating community and solving problems. And so, being at an institution that didn't have a lot of people who looked like me, it was just interesting to be able to carve out a lot of new solutions, and just do good work at that school. And so I would say that was my first job. Really, that was my first big girl job, because, a student body organization is kind of like a nonprofit in itself, and so I worked there. And then eventually when I graduated college, my first job was with Americans for the Arts. It was an internship.
Really?
Yeah.
Excuse me, in New York City?
In New York City, yeah. I worked for a dance institution. Yes.
You really are a jack of all trades.
I worked for a dance institution. I graduated, and I knew I didn't want to leave college without a job.
Uh-huh.
And so I took an internship that paid really well. But also, like, part of me really wanted to be a part of the arts community.
Yeah.
And with this internship, you don't really know where they're going to put you. You just know it's going to be a part of the arts community. So I took it, and I ended up working for a dance institution. And yeah, that was interesting. I was an event organizer / administrator.
How was that experience?
It was good. Like with that particular organization, I learned a lot about disability rights, which was something that I didn't really expect. But like within that dance institution, like they focused heavily on how to bring individuals who are disabled into spaces that allowed them to enjoy art, such as like dance. And so it was interesting. Like dance is not something that I was passionate about at all, but justice in itself is something that I've always been passionate about. And so being in that kind of space, I was just allowed to just learn something different, and be around a lot of different individuals that, I got a lot out of. I also was set up with a mentor at the time. And so she was this Black woman who was just so beautiful in all the ways and taught me so much about, how to be a professional as a Black woman, but also how to enjoy life, and just like how to exist in spaces such as corporate, which is where I was going to go into eventually, while taking care of myself, and while just, doing good at the same time.
Yeah, it's such a wonderful story. Well, let's go back a minute. When did your dad start the thrift store?
My dad's my dad's been in the Harlem area for over 20 years. He started working there around 2001, where he used to work by the train station on 135th Street in Harlem. And then eventually he moved to next to the train station on 125th. And so he would be there selling daily essentials such as socks, T-shirts, just the everyday thing that a person would need. And he was actually very successful.
Outside.
Outside. He would sell that outside. So he had a table where he would come to every single day, rain or shine. He was there. Cold, summer, he was there. And so, eventually from there, he moved into like a little corner right outside of a grocery store. It's actually shut down recently. But that's where he was. That's where my mom met him when she brought us in around 2008. And that's where they worked together for almost every single day. And so eventually he was then able to move into a front store, which is not the place that we're at right now, but another spot on 127. And then eventually in 2012, he moved into the space that is now the thrift store. And it is this space that he has been for, decades. And, he's just been a person who's really been about the community in Harlem.
Yeah, he's a pillar of the Harlem community.
Mhm.
Everyone knows him and the work that he's done through his sales, but also being a Muslim.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's known people there since they were like 5, and those are customers that still come to the store till today to buy the same old thing, the T-shirt. And so he's been in that community for so long, and that community has been the reason why all of us were able to come to the U.S. That community has been the reason why we have been able to survive and make ends meet. And my dad has been there. He's worked 7 days a week for as long as I've known him being there.
Did you ever ask him what inspired him to start this business, entrepreneur?
Yeah, so he's been an entrepreneur his whole life. He was actually a very successful entrepreneur back in Guinea. He used to travel all around the world, actually. So he's been to probably every country you can name, from Syria, he would tell us before the war, to China, to Australia, to everywhere. He used to go to these countries and then bring merchandise into Guinea. So he would sell similar things like clothing and, other daily essentials. So he kind of did the same thing back there that he did here as well.
That's amazing. What's your first memory of him selling?
Yeah, so I remember the daily interactions that he had with his customers. I think that's the one thing that's like really clear to me. For some reason, I would just pay attention to the things that he would sell with his customers, the hats, and I also just remember being excited to go into Harlem because I knew we'd get the sandwiches from the deli, we'd get the food, and we'd just spend time with him that we weren't able to get at home. That's really what I remember, I would say, from like the early years. And I also there's this memory that is not really mine, but it's something that, my dad tells me recently. And it's one of the reasons why I actually wanted to come into this store and do something about and work with him. He told me a story about my mom when she first came to this country. So she actually had not known that my dad was selling outside. She thought that he was, he was making ends meet and he was doing business, but she didn't realize just how hard it had been for him. And so when she first came, it was actually during winter, and she saw him, she got off the train, she came and she saw him selling outside in the cold. And I remember him telling me how she cried, just watching him, with his jacket, selling right on the street. And she just cried, she cried and he cried. And I don't know if I've ever seen my parents really cry in front of me, but I just I have that memory of my mom coming and seeing him in that particular position and just, being with him and deciding that from that point on, she was going to stand with him and work with him every single day. And so he would tell me about the stories about him and my mom transitioning from going, inside and outside during cold winters. They would transition. He would stay outside for a little bit, and then she would go inside to get some warmth. And then, she would come back outside and he would go inside. And so I think memories like that is something that just speaks to the hard work and like the labor that has gone into all of his years being in Harlem and like really working for us. And so, well, it's not my memory. It's something that I always carry with me.
That's love in action. It's an amazing story.
Mm-hmm.
Love, dedication, so many adjectives come to mind. Such a great story. Now you're the owner of Modify Thrift. For all those that don't know Modify Thrift, because it's known throughout the world. What is Modify Thrift?
So Modify Thrift is a modest fashion thrift shop. We are reimagining modest fashion through pre-loved clothing. So we provide pre-loved modest fashion, accessories, and now we're venturing into luxury designer bags because the girls love their designer bags. They love their accessories. And Modify was really just born out of this interest of mine. I've been thrifting forever. I've been thrifting for a long time. And I've always wanted...
What is thrifting?
Thrifting? Thrifting it's a whole experience, It's an experience of buying pre-loved clothing, so clothing that other people have loved and have now decided to pass on.
Not pre-worn, pre-loved.
Pre-loved.
Okay.
And it's important to say that.
I brought some pre-love for you, and we're going to get to my pre-love.
Yes. Because if you've worn something, it means you've loved it at one point. And so if you decided to pass it on, then, it's something you've loved before that somebody else can now love. And so I've been thrifting forever, and I always wanted a thrift store that would have modest clothing. Because whenever I would go to other thrift stores, I would have to go thrift store hopping or search really hard to find a long sleeve maxi dress and an abaya. Like I can't even find abayas in other thrift stores. And so I've always wanted this store where I would walk in and majority of the clothing would be modest. And so I decided that now that I am going to take over the store and really help my dad, I wanted to do something that aligned with my interests and my values and something that I could maintain and sustain because I do truly love it and want to bring it into existence.
Where is it located?
It's located in Harlem. It's in Harlem on 129th Street. Yeah.
You took over the business from your dad.
Mm-hmm.
So what was that process like? Because I know he's a strong Muslim dad. So how did you go to him and say, hey, I want to open up a modified thrift, pre-loved clothing?
Well, I didn't really tell him what it was in the beginning. All he saw was his daughter coming in and helping him do business. So in the beginning, I didn't even know if I was going to stick with doing a thrift store. Because the way that I approach business is I want to provide something that other people want as well. You want to be solving a problem. That's the only way you're going to truly have a profitable business. But with my dad in the beginning, I could tell he just really needed the help and the support with the store. So it started with just like redeveloping the space. And then slowly I told him that I wanted to sell used clothing. Because he doesn't really know what thrift is, but I explained it to him in my language that we're going to be selling used clothing. And
what is your language, please?
Fulani.
Fulani. Okay. So you're talking to your dad about selling used clothing, pre-loved clothing. He rejected that idea, I'm sure.
He did.
So how did you move this forward?
Well, I had to really explain it to him. I had to tell him, because the other part is like, I come from the space of sustainability. I actually didn't mention this, but one of the first organizations I founded is called Faithfully Sustainable. So it's a Muslim-led environmental justice organization, the first of its kind in New York City here. And so he's known that I've been into sustainability and protecting the planet and things like that. So it kind of just started off with me like educating him, and I have been over the years of like, what sustainability is and the importance of, using what we already have instead of producing new clothing. So I would say I kind of just like explained to him the overall idea behind why a thrift store is necessary. But then I just convinced him with the fact that we didn't have money. Because the reality of it is we were literally starting from the ground up. When I went to the store, we were in the negatives. Like the business was making a loss. So I was like, we need to have a business that, number one, is going to grow with us. And, there is a customer base for it, but also like has the lowest expenses possible to start. And so I told them that like if we do a thrift store, that means people can donate clothes to us and we don't have to pay for inventory. And right now we don't have the money to pay for inventory. We only have money from donations to redevelop the space. And so I convinced him by telling him that we need to start with something that doesn't really require a lot of startup costs.
When did the light bulb go off in his head, say, okay, my daughter got this?
So I would say my opening ceremony.
The opening? Really?
Yeah. Actually, no, even till then, he actually wasn't really convinced. So, actually, the light bulb went off when I heard about another Fulani family, which is the tribe that I'm from, that has a thrift store in Atlanta. So this whole time I thought, okay, like we were, the first ones doing this. But apparently there's another Fulani, family that has a thrift store. It's not a modest thrift store, but it's a regular thrift store. And so the minute I heard that, mind you, I've been working like hell, like not, taking any days off. I decided that I was going to take a day off. I was going to take a weekend off. And so my husband and I flew all the way to Atlanta to meet this family and see this thrift store that they had started. And apparently this man, Mr. Lamine, like he has been in the thrifting industry or the resale industry for over 10 years. And so I knew that the only way I can really convince my dad is to get another Fulani dad to talk to him. And so this guy was bigger than me. Like, he has, he has a whole industry. And they have a thrift store, like a humongous thrift store in Atlanta that was opened about a year ago. And they have been seeing a lot of success with it. And so I thought, let me go and see what this man is up to. And let me get him to talk to my dad. And so I literally put them on the phone. And I think that's when the light bulb went off. And it was like, okay, like you may have a point here.
What did you learn from the trip?
Oh, a lot. There is so much value from seeing other people who look like you do something and do it really well. And so through that trip, I was able to see what was possible, like beyond just like my little thrift store. I got to see the back end of like what it takes to run a store that's like, a Goodwill, for example, like what do these factories look like? How are people working in there? What kind of machinery are they using? And then I got to see a business that was much bigger than mine, still in its developmental stage, right? And I got to see how they were working and how this family was thinking, and like it was really cool. Like it was probably, I would say, like one of the most important trips I've made, and one of these most important individual I've spoken to. And he's also somebody who has had multiple businesses. And so sitting in a room with him and hearing him just like talk goodness into my idea and my, and the project that I was doing, and asking him questions and learning directly from him, like that was just like invaluable, information and mentorship.
Excellent. So your father's giving you the green light. What were your first steps?
My first steps, I even though my father had not really been on board with the whole thing, I was still working. I was still working, and I also just like, I took things in stages, right? Because when you're working with your father, you have to respect him. I mean, no matter who you're working with, you have to respect them. But like if it's your father, you have to respect them even more. And so it was really a process of not transitioning the entire store immediately and kind of leaving room for what he has been doing his whole life, you know? And so I got to like kind of like 90% of the store was a thrift store, but then 10% still had the t-shirts, still had the socks, still had the suitcases and the things that, you know, he was used to selling. And so he had his own space where he was selling those items. And then I was curating the rest of the store and slowly transitioning it. And so, yeah, it happened very slow.
So the steps you took were to make sure your dad was comfortable, so it was slow and getting him to adjust. So did you take control of the entire business at some point?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely took control of the business. I will say now I've taken control of the business. Now that he has gone on his 6-month sabbatical.
And this was all before the birth of your first child.
Oh yeah, no. This was so. I mean, in terms of me, like actually taking control of the business was when I first started redeveloping the space, you know, because I went in there and I told him, like, I didn't tell him exactly what kind of business we were going to do, just because I knew that there had to be a build-up and understanding there. But I knew that going in, I would be, number one, I was 2 months postpartum, right? And so I was in an extremely vulnerable state.
So you were working there while pregnant?
I was working while pregnant, but I was mainly doing work at home for the most part. Like, and he was still like running the business, and he had people who were subleasing and things like that. And so he did a lot of work to just keep the space, you know. But then I had to go in 2 months postpartum, actually much earlier than I really would have wanted to, because my dad was actually being taken advantage of by individuals in Harlem who wanted to buy him out, buy the business for like $25,000, like literal change, right? So on one end, he was tired and he was ready to move, but also I saw that a lot of people were seeing his vulnerability and wanting to go in and, you know, take advantage of him. And so that's when I really had to like, you know, strap down and be like even though like I'm really like not in a space to do anything, like I have to. I have to, because otherwise we might actually lose this location. We might lose this legacy that my father has worked so hard to keep, you know, because keeping a business in Harlem or keeping a business in this day and age is just really hard, you know. So even though it wasn't a profitable business anymore, he kept the location. He found a lot of innovative ways by subleasing to other people, you know, by just doing a whole bunch of other things to keep the business alive. And so I just like, you know, sacrificed myself. That was a little extra, but like, you know, I just went in and decided that it was time to take over. And so I took over operations, you know, so, you know, from the beginning, I had kind of just like taken over and was just building slowly.
Where did you come up with the name Modify Thrift? And what does it mean? Mm-hmm. What does it mean to you, but what does it mean in general?
Yeah. So, I mean, the overall business name is just Modify. You know, I wanted like a strong one name business for the store, but I wanted it to represent something bigger than myself. And so the name Modify just means like overall, like we're modifying thrift, number one, thrift culture. Because currently thrift culture that is not really inclusive of modest fashion. It's not really inclusive of culture, traditional pieces. But also it is not really like thrift culture right now is not, it's filled with a lot of fast fashion and not a lot of like just like, you know, vintage pieces and good quality clothing. And so I want to have a thrift store that changes all of that. But ultimately, I also want to have a thrift store that benefits the people. You know, one of the things that my dad did a lot in this thrift store is he would basically, it was like a third space for asylum seekers and refugees that, you know, were coming into Harlem. You know, he was somebody who, when he first came in, he got help from family and got help from people. And that kind of like really, you know, stayed with him. And so whoever whoever came into the store, you know, like he would try and help them in whichever way he could. And, you know, I don't know if you remember around the time when like there was a huge, you know, amount of like asylum seekers in the city. In any given day, you would find about like 10 to 20 people at the thrift store leaving their bags, you know, coming there to eat because my mom would cook every day and bring food to the store. So it was kind of like this community hub already.
Refuge.
Yeah, a refuge, exactly. And so that made me want to create a thrift store that hopefully eventually employs asylum seekers and refugees to run it and to provide them with economic opportunities, because that is something that a lot of them struggle here in this country. And so, yeah, I don't know where I was going with this, but
No, the name Modify Thrift.
yes.
You know, your explanations are incredible. So just talk. It's fine.
Okay. Yeah. So, so that's part of it. Like I want to just modify thrift culture so that it's more inclusive in terms of options and provides modest fashion, but also to have a thrift store that is going to benefit people socially and economically.
It's such a beautiful store. Now, you shared the renovation, the opening, everything. You were just public with it. What made you decide to do that?
Well, I knew that we were starting with so little, right? So in the beginning, I kind of wanted to really tell the story of my dad as well. I wanted to tell his story in a way so that his legacy remains, you know, for people to know that it didn't start with me.
What's your dad's name?
Mamadou. They call him Alaji.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Alhaji Bashiru is the name that they call him by. And so I wanted the story of Modify to begin with my dad's legacy and the long years and efforts that he has put into the space and into our family. And I also wanted to do that for all the other individuals that are going to be a part of the Modify community, you know, because a lot of us are, you know, we come from immigrant communities or, you know, families who have just like worked so hard to allow us to live our dreams and to do what we are doing here in the United States. And so I wanted that story to be told. And I still am thinking about other creative ways to bring that more to light. But really, like I started with those videos to tell my dad's story, but to also bring people into what it takes to build a business from like the ground up. You know, like even though I don't think we were starting from the ground up because we had a location. You know, we had a location and we had a community. But what does it mean to start over? What does it mean to really build without a lot of resources?
One of the funniest moments were when I saw you get your brothers to help move some stuff. You know, are they very supportive?
Yes, my family is very supportive. Without them, like I would not have been able to do this. Like my brother is one of my favorite individuals, my favorite humans in this entire planet. He, you know, was my very first investor donor, you know, into the project. And he's just a beautiful human and like got, you know, him, his friends and all of them to really help us in doing a lot of the work at the store. And by extension, the rest of my family as well. Like this is a community project.
How did you convince your dad? Because he's like a straight up Muslim dad, you know, community pillar. You can see he's a man of respect. He commands respect just by his presence, you know, and he you can look at him. He's a very wise man. He's the type of brother that'll give you good advice. How did you convince him to do some of those TikTok things?
I convinced, I honestly, I still ask myself that question every single time we have to make a new TikTok. But I just told him that like, this is what people do now. I told him this is what we have to do. This is the new age of marketing and like, you know, people like this stuff.
Hey, I saw him. What was the thing you did recently with all the influencers? Explain that.
Yeah, so we recently had a modest closet refresh at the store. It was our very first one as we were just transitioning into fall, and we invited the community in, and we had some influencers kindly donate a lot of really high quality clothing. And so naturally we had to create TikToks.
No, and there was one moment where you created like a runway.
Yeah.
And you had your dad walk down the runway.
Yeah, I mean, my dad is a really cool guy. Like that's the thing that like I got really lucky because he is very like he's very religious. Like he's the type of man like he's on his deen.
Yeah.
But he's also very easygoing. He doesn't really care for social media. He has no idea what I'm posting most of the time. But he just enjoys being in community and like just doing activities with me.
I know, because, I've been to the store a few times and I watch you and him, and the love is so strong, between you and your dad. And I really admire it, Alhamdulillah. Like he's, shake his hand for me. He's done a fantastic job with you. And just being the cool dad, it's hard. It's hard being a cool dad. Modify Thrift is now the place where all the cool hijabis go from all over the world. France, London, Guinea, Ghana, all over America. How did you become the cool place?
Well, we're still building, I promise you. But, like one of the things, like with Modify, our whole goal is to provide affordable and sustainable, high quality, modest fashion.
Her stuff, high quality. I'm talking about Chanel, Dior, etc. All the way down, all of the top-notch fashion brands.
Yeah, well, we don't have Dior yet, but we are looking to have it.
You gotta let me take some liberty.
Okay. I got you. Okay.
I'm trying to get traffic.
Sorry, I'm trying to be honest.
But I'm the one that was doing the delivery.
Okay, all right. Redo it. But yeah, I mean, we're really trying to just bring a lot of high quality items to
But you have these sisters coming from all over.
We do.
How did you become, and are you finding me a wife? That's the second question. But how did you get all these sisters to come? Because this is the place. Mm-hmm. How did you make that happen? Please.
Well, a lot of it, honestly, it's really thanks to Allah.
Alhamdulillah.
And thanks to my original community of donors. Like when I first started this, we were able to raise around $14,000.
Just from donations?
Just from donations from community online, who were the pillars for us being able to reconstruct the space. And it was a small budget, right? When you think about reconstructing a whole business space. But thanks to their donations and also thanks to their du'as, that is the reason I really believe we were able to make what we made happen. And of course my dad, in being connected in the community that we have in Harlem, like he knew people that were doing the work, some of the work for us for free.
But he went back to Guinea, and how is life without him?
Yeah, life without him has, I mean, I'm still navigating this new space, a lot of my time with my dad was amazing. Like we got to spend time together, we got to eat together, we got to build a business together, but we also argued a lot. We argued a lot. So I think for the first few days I was kind of just like, oh damn, I'm sorry.
What did you argue about? No, feel free.
We argued about product placement, about just the whole idea of a thrift store and like why not having new items.
The essence of it probably was he didn't want to let go.
Yeah.
That's the essence of it.
Absolutely. He did not want to let go, especially because he had like competitors in Harlem who were ready to take whatever he was selling. So he was like, you can't do business this way. Okay? Like these people are going to start buying, they're going to start selling this. Like you can't get rid of this so soon. Like we already have our, people who come here for that. And so I think transitioning a business and like deciding to pivot to something that, inshallah is going to be better was a major, shift and a major change for him. And so that created a lot of conflict between us. Like the first few days I was just kind of like, like, alhamdulillah, like, I get to take a break for a little bit. But then, now I'm just like, man, like my dad has been doing the work, because even though we were, I was coming in almost every day, he still maintained to come in 7 days a week, and he still maintained his 10 to 10 schedule. Okay, because that's what he's used to. And so now that I have to be the one to open up and sweep the front of the store, because apparently like that's the responsibility of a store owner, not the building. And I have to be there from like, store opening to store closing every day. And I'm not just focused on curating the store. I have to do sales as well. I just really get to see what he's been dealing with this whole entire time. And I just know that it's a lot.
And you miss him.
And I miss him. And I miss doing it with him as well. But, I'm also just really happy that, we've been able to grant him, or for he's been able to have his first sabbatical in like 30 plus years. This is the first time that he's away, and he's going to be away for a good 6 months, inshallah. Or as he says, until it gets a little too hard for me to handle on my own.
When did he let go? Because there's a point where he said, he's away for 6 months. He says, you got this.
Yeah. I really think he let go. Honestly, I would say this last event we had. Because up until then, like he was excited about, going. But this last event is where he saw people come from all over to participate in our event. He saw just how possible it was to get many community members, many customers to come into the store. And I don't think my dad has seen that in his store in like forever. We definitely had not seen that many people come and shop in one day. And so I think it was a combination of just seeing the community there, and that there was people who want this kind of business to be around. And also he just saw that I was more in control. He saw that I had a team. He saw that, I had people helping me, and he saw that there were people who believed in my work and that I wasn't alone. And I think that made him a little bit more comfortable. Yeah, up until he was leaving, like whoever came in, he would tell him like, my daughter's a store owner now, please take care of her. Like he would say things like that to kind of like build up and prepare himself, I would say, more so than preparing, me.
And very proud.
And very proud. Very proud.
How do you curate your clothes?
I curate my clothes with the intention that I want to have a diverse amount of different modest clothing in the store, because modest clothing is not just abayas either. Like my number one customer that comes into the store is actually just like the regular Harlem person, as well as a lot of revert sisters, because they are really looking for modest fashion that speaks to them as an individual, and not just like, Arab kind of fashion, So with my thrift store, I like to have clothing from all over the world. I like to have West African modest fashion. I like to have Middle Eastern clothing.
But how do you find it?
Oh, so we have a buy, sell, trade model, buy, sell, trade, and donate model. So as of right now, we're primarily donations, where people bring the clothing into the store. But then on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, we also trade. So people can bring clothing into the store, and they can get 50% of trading credit. And then sometimes I also buy. We're very small. But, the goal eventually to be able to buy directly from the community, so that we could have like more higher quality items in the store. But as of right now, alhamdulillah, it's been mainly donations. Sometimes I also source. So if I go to a really cool spot and I see something that, is within what I'm interested in, what I think my community would be interested in, then I bring it in.
So with that said, Wolf, my engineer, Wolf, can you bring these clothes to me?
Yes, thank you.
So this is from the Haqq Islam collection.
Oh, this is exciting.
Yeah, so tell me what you think of these. And these are all donations.
I love this. And I love that we're doing this because we also have men's clothing, by the way.
Yeah, you do. And you have some fly shoes.
We do.
You really do.
I mainly market the women's stuff because I'm, planning to do a whole other thing for the men. But we have men's clothing. And we have kaftans as well. But we also have stuff like this. I love suits because many people can wear suits. Women can wear suits. Men can wear suits. And this is nice. Saks Fifth Avenue.
It's from the Haqq Islam collection.
Yes, it is.
And I had to bring it for my friend Kadjahtou.
Wow. Okay. Only at Modify, y'all.
Yeah, only at Modify. And what's that address again?
371 Malcolm X Boulevard.
Okay.
129th Street, Lenox.
Now, that was made, that's a bespoke. That was made for me.
Custom. I love a good custom suit.
There you go.
Yeah.
Got a 40s feel to it.
Yeah, this is really nice. I can see somebody rocking this. This is nice. Oh my God. The people are always asking me for like oversized / like wide leg pants. And this is just a really good.
And that's also you is it women or men?
This could be both.
Both?
Yeah, This could really be both. I love this. This is good. Good job.
So thank you very much. I appreciate that. Now I'm gonna keep doing this because I'm you're my friend. I want to see you survive. So I'm gonna keep giving you stuff. So I think you should have a section of the store called the Haqq Islam section.
I'll consider it.
Yeah, because that's a good answer. Okay, personal. How'd you meet your husband?
What a pivot. I met my husband through one of my best friends. Yeah.
Are we best friends? That's how I'm going to meet my wife?
Yeah, honestly, it was so unexpected because I wasn't really looking for anybody. Like, I've always been about my business, okay? So I wasn't looking for anybody. But I remember I was on a train, like actually coming back from work. And then my best friend calls me and she's like, there's this guy, this and this and that and a third. And, I think you should really meet him. And I was like, I'm not really looking for anyone right now. Are you sure? Like, is he really a good person to meet? And so I went ahead and I told her that she can give him my number. And I guess the rest is history.
Was it love? I like having these conversations because so many of our audience members are Gen Z and millennials, and they don't believe in love. So was it love at first sight? Was it an evolution? Please share.
Yeah, I would say initially there was definitely a connection.
Oh.
Like when I first saw him, I still remember that moment, which is really interesting. Like now that you're asking, I still remember the first time I ever saw my husband. And yeah, there was just there was an immediate connection there in some way. Like I don't think love at first sight is something that exists, right? Like I've actually always been a believer that love is work. That it's not something that comes by so easily, and it's not something that you get by talking to a person for a few months, a few weeks or whatnot. I think it's something that is built over time.
A great man once told me, love equals work times distance.
I believe that. And I've always believed that for some reason. Like ever since I was younger, I always knew that if you're talking to somebody on the phone, you're not really going to know them to the point where you're going to really love them. Like you have to actually live with them, and you have to be with them for a couple of, for some time to be able to really truly love that person, because especially now that I'm married, I realize that I was right. You can have a beautiful conversation with somebody and very much like that individual. But I think love is something so much deeper and something that requires a lot of work.
Alhamdulillah. So how long was it between meeting and marriage?
Well, between meeting and proposal, I think it was 3 months.
Wow.
Yeah. And then between meeting and marriage, was it 6 months or 9 months? I think 6 months. Yeah.
How is it being the CEO, Pillar of Harlem, new family, baby? How old is your daughter?
17 months.
17 months, and a husband. You got a lot going on. How do you juggle it all?
I don't. I'm very much a work in progress. I'm pending at all times. But I really, I have to thank my family. From the very beginning, like I have really supportive parents. I have really supportive mom, and I have a very supportive in-laws as well. Like my mom and my mother-in-law are like there to help me take care of my baby, ever since she was born. Like they take turns actually babysitting her on top of their own jobs. And so I have a really strong support system. My sisters help out. My husband's sister helps out. And so, like in the beginning, the reason I was able to actually even do this business, despite not wanting that at the time, my husband and I actually lived with his family. And so because of that, like a lot was taken off of my plate in terms of like, cooking, in terms of, I mean, I helped out here and there, but like, a lot was taken off of my plate, which is the only reason I was able to be present in the store, And then when I needed childcare, somebody was there to take care of my daughter, and I knew that she would be in good hands. And then even in running the store now, my mom and my mother-in-law, they take turns. Like I said, she babysits her on a set amount of days, and my mom babysits her on a set amount of days. And so having their support has been the reason why we are able to do this, and why I am able to do this, even in terms of cooking, even now that we have moved out and live on our own, like my mother-in-law like makes a lot of our food. I'm not gonna lie, like that woman is God sent. And she's a really good cook. And my husband already likes how much she makes anyways. So she helps out wherever she can, by cooking for us. And my mom too, she cooks for us as well. And so having their support is really the reason why I'm able to do any of this.
Harlem loves you. The Muslim community supports you. Tell me about that dynamic between the Muslim community, Harlem, everything, because sometimes I'm just in your store and I see just everybody comes in there, they know you, everybody, it doesn't matter ethnicity, religion, nationality, they love you. How did this happen?
Well, Harlem is like a small town in a big city. Like it is actually one of my favorite places in this whole entire earth. Like I love Harlem. I love the people there. Like when I quit my job, my first big girl job, which was for WeWork actually, and then my second big girl job was for the state. I used to be a program manager. And so I've always been in like these, corporate offices. And so I really craved community. I craved interaction, and I craved being amongst people. And being in Harlem and being at my dad's store, like when I started, the redevelopment project there, I really took it slow. And I spent the first few months just like, of course, changing the space, but talking to a whole ton of people. Like whoever would come in, like I would have a conversation with them. I would ask them how they know my dad, how long they've been in the area. And so over time, I got to know a lot of the people who my dad knew, and he would introduce them to me as, his daughter and the new owner and things like that. And so we just really vibe with each other. I got to understand them. Even the community of like houseless people in the individual, like they're all a part of our community, and they're people that my dad has supported over the years. So I know them too. Like they come in for their daily dollar or their daily water. You know what I mean? And like they keep it moving. And so I love Harlem because the people there are really they really like go hard for their own. Like even when we first transitioned into this thrift store, a lot of them, like they came in and they would bring us donations. To this day, they continue to bring us donations, and they don't ask for anything in return. And a lot of them is because they know my dad and they know how long he's been there, and just like how he is a pillar of that community. And so to me, being amongst them and just like being able to learn from them and build with them is something that, I take a lot of pride in.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
What's next for you, your family, your store? Because I just adore you, and I want to see you succeed. I'll help you wherever I can. So what's next?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, like, thank you. Honestly, like, I know this is our first, real sit down podcast wise, but just meeting you as well has been one of, really great experiences of starting a thrift store, because that's how you got to know me. In the short amount of time that we've been speaking, you've been helpful in like all the ways, because you just know everybody. But for Modify, I will say number one is just strengthening our operations, right? Really solidifying our thrift store into a place that offers affordable and quality modest fashion to our community. But in terms of next, right, I do see us going into the digital space a lot more. Yeah, so I am thinking about how to do this, but we are active on Instagram and social media, and a lot of people are always asking for a website.
Digital sales.
Digital sales, they're always asking, or they even buy off of Instagram. Like a lot of my sales, sometimes I don't even get sales in store, but they come in through Instagram. And so because we're still very slow, because we're still very new, we definitely have to diversify ourselves. And part of that is going to be on an online website, and it might be a business to consumer or consumer to consumer option where like customers are able to buy the options that we have in store. Or it might also be a feature where the customers can sell to each other. And so we are exploring different things, but this next stage I'm realizing is going to be, practically turning me into some sort of tech entrepreneur, which I wasn't really ready for. Which, by the way, if you're a software developer, please let me know. I am looking for people to work with. But it might be something, we want to create something that is going to be useful for my community. So I still have to do a lot of talking and, conversing with people to figure out what our online presence is going to be like. But it is something that I'm excited to go into.
Listen, thank you so much for coming on the Oasis. Your personality, you're effervescent, you're bubbly, you're smart, you're intelligent, you're Muslim. You got a whole lot going on. Family woman, mother, sister, everything, and I gotta say this. I hate to say it, because I don't want to seem paternal, but I'm very proud of you. And I love visiting your store because it's so cool. It's just a vibe, your store is a vibe, and anything I can do to help you, I'm here too. So thank you. Listen, this has been a pleasure because you had me laughing, and you had me laughing when I watch you online, some of the things you do. And when you had your dad doing TikTok, I couldn't stop laughing. So thank you for coming. I appreciate you. Everyone, please go to Modify Thrift, support our sister. And it's your brother, Haqq signing off. Until next time, assalamu alaikum.